Fight me. Now I think we can transition a bit into Kyler Murray and what has been going on with that guy, right? Number one, dude finally got an agent, an NFL agent. Now, Scott Boras cannot represent Kyler Murray in the NFL. Can't do it. Major League Baseball agent, right? We can get into the rigmarole about that, but for our purposes, just know they can't do it. So he finally signed a guy, and he signed that guy just this morning, Erik Burkhardt, who is a Stoolie. All right, cool. You sign an agent who's a Stoolie, and then you sign an agent who is Kliff Kingsbury's agent. And then Kliff Kingsbury has to go out and say, we're not going to sign Kyler Murray. Josh Rosen is our guy. We're not going to draft Kyler Murray. Josh Rosen is our guy. But Erik Burkhardt represents both of you now. And Erik Burkhardt is calling Kliff Kingsbury his brother. This is wildly interesting to me. Because number one, you got Kliff Kingsbury, who is going to be the guy everybody's watching week one because he failed up into a job, number one. Number two, he wants to run air raid, or at least that's what he ran at Texas Tech. So I'm wondering what that looks like with the pieces he has around. And number two, why would you want to continue to have Josh Rosen as your guy if you said way back when that Kyler Murray would be your number one overall pick? Now, he also qualified that statement saying, hey, I was being complimentary of a team we were playing that week. I did not know that I would be the Arizona Cardinals head coach come February. Well, how is that possible? Because I got to believe you knew before anybody else knew that you could be Arizona head coach. Like, I just don't see that you don't know anything about this in October, and then by January, it's happened. It's over. It's done. So much so that you had a cup of coffee at USC as if to force their hand. I don't buy it. So I'm not necessarily going to rule out that you're not going to draft Kyler Murray or try to shop Josh Rosen for some offensive linemen and or picks. Because there are lots of teams in the NFL that still run the kind of offense where Josh Rosen would thrive. Notably, the New York Giants. So what if you traded down with them and then you got Kyler at like 6? Right? That's a win for you. That's a win for everybody. Now, talk about the cap hit. We're talking about cap space. We get into that. But the NFL prints money, and if they want to go get Kyler Murray, they'll go get Kyler Murray, which is one of the reasons why I have poured one out for Denver Broncos fans who are stuck with Joe Flacco in back-to-back years where they could have gone and got, Baker Mayfield, who John Elway basically baited everybody with by showing up at the Pro Day last year, or traded to go get Kyler Murray this year. Instead, Joe Flacco. Have fun with that. But again, Kyler Murray to Arizona is the sexy thing to look at because Kliff Kingsbury knows air raid, and we know that Kyler Murray just got done winning a Heisman Trophy in the air raid, and we also know that he's the best athlete in this draft. But forget Arizona for a second. Where else could he go? He'd go to the Bengals. Zach Taylor, by the way, a native Oklahoman head coach at the Cincinnati Bengals, might not be married to Andy Dalton. And why would he be? But you think about Kyler Murray next to Joe Mixon throwing passes to A.J. Green, and all of a sudden, that's sexy. That looks real good on paper. Matter of fact, that might be my Madden squad if that happened. But you got to answer the question about whether Andy Dalton is your guy going forward for the next 3, 4, 5 years. But that's not taking into account the 2020 draft or what I'm dubbing the Trevor Lawrence draft in 2021 when that dude is going to be the first pick overall. So it's not as if they have to make a move. But if you wanted Kyler and you like Kyler and you're Zach Taylor and you think that you know something that McVay knew, maybe you go and get Kyler Murray. It's a natural fit. The Giants, not so much of a natural fit because that's not what Pat Shermer likes to run. But if he was willing to adapt his personnel to running something that was a little bit more wide open, again, having Kyler Murray next to Saquon Barkley is sexy. Having Kyler Murray, Saquon Barkley on one side, and then you got over here at your wide receiver is Sterling Shepard. I almost said Russell Shepard. And then over here at your X receiver, you got Odell Beckham Jr. That's sexy. Evan Ingram at the tight end. That's sexy. You can get that done. But again, do you want a Dwayne Haskins type if you're Pat Shermer? Probably, right? I know that some folks have Kyler Murray slotted to the Miami Dolphins, but since we don't know what kind of scheme, if any, Brian Flores wants to run associated with, an air raid, I don't know, man. I mean, Ryan Tannehill seems like he could be a pretty good quarterback, and you don't necessarily have to make that move. But I am not going to hate Kyler Murray throwing passes to Kenny Stills or Jakeem Grant for that matter. With Kenya Drake in the backfield. Again, it's sexy. But that's kind of my point about Kyler Murray. There's really like a third of the league where he is an outstanding fit because he is himself, right? And I think this is one of the ways where Kyler's agent, Erik Burkhardt, was onto something when he went on his Stoolie podcast to say the dinosaurs in the NFL are wrong. Number one, Kyler Murray is tall enough to throw the football over whoever he needs to throw the football over. Number two, he weighed in at 205, so he's not exactly slight of build either. But I'm not sure that I want my agent going on the comeback season from all the time talking about what I'm going to do or what I'm going to be. Of course, I'm not Kyler Murray, and I didn't make that decision. So again, wildly fascinating because I feel like Erik Burkhardt is going to break more news than Kyler Murray is going to break. And watching this thing play out with the power dynamics is going to be a lot of fun because we know from Stoolie behavior that those dudes ain't really into taking orders from anybody or backing down. I mean, Portnoy got handcuffed at the Super Bowl, right? I mean, as talented as some of those dudes are, it's still Barstool. And that's who Kyler just signed. So there's a whole group of people that necessarily are looking at this and they're holding their nose, but maybe Kyler knows something that we don't, right? It's food for thought.